Azoi.
Okay. Okay, Erev Tov, everyone. So, confusing me. I'll just remind everybody, those of you you'll have seen on your way inside, there are a lot of posters up. There are a lot of things going on in the shul. Baruch Hashem. Last night there was a wonderful event. For those who were here, for those who weren't here, you missed out. There is no recording. But I will remind you the next big event we have coming up, which there also will be no recording, is in a couple of weeks' time. We have Shabbat, a scholar in residence with Rabbi Professor Avram Steinberg, who is the world authority on Jewish medical ethics, many other things as well. He's going to be here on throughout Shabbat and Motzei Shabbat. I mention it now because there'll be a Friday night dinner here in the shul. You need to sign up for that. Spaces are limited. And there'll be a question and answer with him after the Kiddush. Again, questions need to be pre-submitted for that. So if anybody has questions, which you should have, so you can submit those and all the details in your email. Okay. So we are well into the month of Adar now. Adar Rishon, because it is, of course, a Shana Me'uberet. If it wasn't a Shana Me'uberet, so at the end of this week would be Purim. But of course it is. So we have another month to go. Again, not that long, but still a little bit away. And the question always comes up, a lot of interesting phenomena that happen with this idea, because we have the Shana Me'uberet, the extra month of Adar that is added in. Once upon a time, it was done every year. The Beit Din would decide based on when it needed to be added. Now we have a fixed calendar. We have the way we remember is Guach Adzat, which is the way you remember out of a 19-year cycle, the gematria of those letters, 3, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, 19. 7 times out of those 19 years, we have the extra month, the Adar Sheni, that's added in. So a lot of interesting things that come up. There's the famous trivia question, right, of how you can have 2 boys who were born. One is older than the other. The one who was born earlier has his bar mitzvah later. This case is brought in the Rishonim. How can that be? That if you have 2 people were born in a Shana Pshuta, so they were born in, they were born in a Shana, checking. They were born in a Shana Me'uberet, right? One was born towards the end of Adar Rishon, and one was born earlier on in Adar Sheni, and the year of the bar mitzvah is then a Shana Pshuta, so there's only 1 month. So the one who was born at the beginning, near the beginning of Adar Sheni, has his bar mitzvah at the beginning of Adar, and the one who was born at the end of Adar Rishon has his bar mitzvah at the end of Adar, because there's only 1 month. So it turns out that the older one actually has his bar mitzvah later, and other things which come up as well. Interesting cases are brought in halakha. So the question is, when we have this Adar Sheni, as we do this year, which is the really Adar, so to speak, does it really make a difference, which is really Adar? In other words, and this comes up, it's a question relating to Yortzites, it's a question relating to Bar Mitzvahs, it's a question relating to anything which is based on anniversaries, based on dates on the calendar. It's, of course, a question related to Purim, which is the Chag of the, I shouldn't say Chag, but it's the festival that we celebrate in Adar. We all know that we celebrate Purim in Adar Sheni, but we'll see how we get there. It's not completely straightforward. And does Purim in Adar Rishon, Purim Katan, as it's known, does that have any status? Is there any halachic significance to that as well? So the Mishnah, actually the Mishnah in Masechet Megillah, Daf Vav Amud Bet, tells us the following. It says, if you had Karu et Megillah b'Adar Rishon. So the case was that, again, nowadays we have the fixed calendar, so it's much easier. We spoke in the past, we have the fixed calendar both in terms of every month and in terms of every year, whether it's a Shana Me'uberet or not. Rosh Hashanah, we know we have Aleph and Bet Tishrei, but it used to be in the time where it was Kiddush HaChodesh, Al Pi Re'iyah, the first day. Maybe it's Rosh Chodesh, maybe it's not Rosh Chodesh. It was a little bit more complicated. Same thing when it comes to Shana Me'uberet. Will this year be, and still in Adar, you can still intercalate the year. You can still add in the extra month. So the case in the Mishnah is, they had not yet done the Yibur HaShana. They've now read the Megillah in Adar Rishon, because there only is Adar Rishon at this point. And then another month gets added in. So now there's going to be another Sheni. So says the Mishnah in such a case, Karu et Megillah b'Adar Rishon v'nit abra Shana. You read the Megillah in the first Adar, and now you have the second Adar that comes. Korin ota b'Adar Sheni. You have to go back and you have to read it again in Adar Sheni. And then it says,
the first one, do you make a bracha on it?
Yeah, because at the time that was the mitzvah, and and that was the time. But now that there's an extra month, so now it becomes, again, the question is, so what does it mean that we have this extra month? Is it that essentially, when do we celebrate Purim? Is it in Adar? When we say Adar, do we mean that it's the 12th month? If I start counting from Nisan, because Nisan is the first month, I get to the 12th month, which will be Adar. And even if I have an extra month, then I have a 13th month afterwards, but Adar was still the 12th month, that would be Adar Rishon. Or do I say no? So when I say Adar, I mean the last month of the year, which comes just before Nisan, and that would be Adar Sheni, which is not right. So says the Mishnah, and we find in the Gemara there's a machloket Tanaim about this point. The Mishnah says, "Ein ben Adar Rishon Adar Sheni." Right. Whenever then there's a whole series of Mishnayot in Megillah and Beitzah and other places. Ein bein. There's no difference between A and B except for this. Whenever the Mishnah tells us this is the only difference between them, you can be sure there will be other differences as well, and the Gemara discusses. But it says, "Ein bein Adar Rishon le'Adar Sheni, ela kriyat Megillah u'matanot le'evyonim." Kriyat Megillah and matanot le'evyonim. Interesting as well that right. The Mishnah mentions those two mitzvot. Mentions the mitzvah of Megillah and the mitzvah of matanot le'evyonim, which will be pushed off from Adar Rishon into Adar Sheni. It does not mention the case of, it does not mention anything about Suda and Mishteh, does not mention Mishloach Manot. By the way, when it gets to Mishloach Manot, closer to Purim, we'll talk. But there is one understanding that Mishloach Manot is specifically related to the Suda. That the gift, that the reason that you give gifts to other people, Mishloach Manot on Purim, is related to the Suda of Purim. And that would seem to make sense that therefore if one is omitted, the two are mentioned together. But in any event, so it says Kriyat Megillah, Matanot le'evyonim, that is the difference. That is only belongs in Adar Sheni and not in Adar Rishon. So that is the opinion, the Gemara then clarifies, that is the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. But there is another opinion that the Gemara says Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, and he says no. He says, En kolinota ba'Adar Sheni, regarding the Megillah, Shekol mitzvot shnoagot b'sheni, noagot b'rishon. So Rabbi Eliezer says, no, you actually. So the question is, when do you read the Megillah? Okay, now, notice the way the Gemara phrases it as well. The Gemara does not say, and there might be significance to this. It doesn't say when is Purim. It could be, in fact, that both Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni are both Purim. But the question is, practically, when do we fulfill the mitzvah of Megillah? So according to one opinion, the Tanna Kama, the Mishnah, and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, it's in Adar Sheni, okay, that's the way that the Shulchan Aruch paskins, that's where we all know. Kippurim and Adar Sheni. But Rabbi Eliezer says it's in Adar Rishon. So why do each of them have these different opinions? The Gemara says they both learn it from a pasuk in the Megillah that says B'chol Shana V'Shana. In every year, B'chol Shana V'Shana tells us every year has to be the same. Ma Kol Shana V'Shana. So what does that mean? Ma Kol Shana V'Shana. So it says, according to Rabbi Eliezer, Makol Shana V'Shana Adar Samuch L'Shvat, Afkan Adar Samuch L'Shvat. He says just as every year Adar comes after Shvat, so that would be Adar Rishon. That's Adar. That's when you read it. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says no. It says B'chol Shana V'Shana Makol Shana V'Shana Adar Samuch L'Nisan, Adar Samuch L'Nisan. So that is the second Adar. And then the Gemara goes in and it says, okay, what's behind this? What's behind this machloket? What is the reasoning? What's the svara that each one has? So actually, the first one, the halachic svara, which is familiar to us from many places, says Rabbi Eliezer, why would we read the Megillah in the first Adar? Because we have the principle of ein mavirin ala mitzvot. When you have a mitzvah that comes your way, you have an opportunity. You don't skip over it. You don't jump over it. You don't wait. That's the first opportunity. That is Adar, and that is when you would fulfill it. The second opinion says no. Actually, two reasons are given why it would be an Adar Sheni. He says either it's because mismach geula legeula adif. Right, we want to have the two geula, the geula of Purim and the geula of Pesach. We want them to be next to each other. Rashi says in the Gemara, by the way, where it says Misha nechnas Adar mabin besimcha. He says, why is it that we increase in happiness when it comes to Adar? Because of the Nisim, because of Purim and Pesach. That is what Rashi says over there in the Gemara. And therefore, so we want the smicha of Geula leGeula, of Purim and Pesach to come together. Another reason the Gemara brings, it says the pasuk from the Megillah, which says "Lakayem et igeret hapurim azot shenit." Shenit is the second. It comes to that's the second. That's the second month. Okay, but that is essentially so. That is the machloket. That's the disagreement we have in the Gemara about when we read the Megillah and when is the central Purim. Is it Adar Rishon or Adar Sheni? And as we all know, the way we paskin halacha is that it's in Adar Sheni. Now that is what they disagree about. What does everybody agree about? Says the Gemara. It says Shavin behesped uvatanit she'asurin bazeh ubazeh. Okay, so this is what we have. So we have Purim Katan, which is in Adar Aleph. What everybody agrees that when it comes to Hesped and Tanit, Purim and Chanukah are the two festivals that we have left from what we call Megillat Tanit. During the days of the Beit HaMikdash and beforehand, in the days of the Gemara, there were many minor festivals. Most of them, about all of them, related to the Beit HaMikdash in some form or other. And these days are in Megillat Ta'anit. Megillat Ta'anit, it's called that because what is the criteria? How are these festivals celebrated? That there is a prohibition of Hesped and of Ta'anit on these days. And there's a whole sugya in the Gemara and Rosh Hashanah about whether Megillat Ta'anit was nullified or not, etc. We hold that everything was cancelled nowadays, except the only two that we have left are Purim and Chanukah, because of Pirsum Hanes, and that was established, so we still have those, but that's related to the idea of Hesped and Tanit. So therefore, says the Gemara that everybody agrees whether you do whether we call it Adar Rishon or we do it Adar Sheni, both months, right? So the Purim Katan will also have this prohibition of Hesped and Tanit. That's the simple reading. That's the way the Rambam understands. That's the way many Rishonim understand as well. Now the Rosh comes along and throws a spanner in the works. And the Rosh says he understands the Gemara differently. Because when it says everybody agrees that there is no Hesped and Ta'anit, what's it talking about? Remember the case in the Mishnah? The case in the Mishnah was where they'd already read the Megillah, meaning when it was Yudaled in the first Adar, when you thought there was only going to be one Adar, and therefore you fulfilled the mitzvah, and then later on, maybe the same day or the next day, you find out that actually no, they say we need an extra month. We need an Adar Sheni this year, and therefore you have to go back. So says the Rosh, that's the case that it's talking about. That when you have no Hesped and Ta'anit is when at the time of Purim Katan in the first place, it wasn't actually Purim Katan, it was Purim. But in an ordinary case, if you knew that there was going to be an extra month, says the Rosh, that first month is actually inconsequential. You could have Hesped, you could have Ta'anit, you could have whatever you want. So according to him, there is no significance, it seems to be, about this Purim Katan. Okay. From there, the converse question is going to be, we'll get into this tomorrow, what about, so first of all, how do we paskin on that question? And then what about Mishteh and Simcha? Somebody said, is there any sort of obligation of Mishteh, of Su'udah, of Simcha, in Adar Rishon? When we say Misha Nechnas Adar Mabim B'Simcha, does that apply to Adar Rishon as well? Does it only apply to Adar Sheni? Okay, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Tam v'lo nishla. Rabbi Chananya ben Akasha Omer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu lezakot Yisrael, לפיכך בא להם תורה מצוות, שנאמר אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה וידעים.